All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you kindly for joining us. This is Stacks Governance Working Group call number 74 now. And it's a pleasure to have everybody as usual. We could ask for some stand-ups. Igor and Ragnar, it's beautiful to have you. Maybe we ask for some introductions from yourselves, or I know Igor, you may have done some in the past, but it'd be good to hear any updates from you guys, or just some insight into what brings you into the group today. But other than that, we can get into the usual folks and some stand-ups of what we've been up to. Even if it's slightly governance related, it's fine to contribute. Let us know what you're up to. So yeah, I'll open up the floor.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Igor, and I joined Trust Machines about 3 months ago as a software engineer in the core engineering group. We're currently building a team of more engineers to make infrastructure improvements to to the Stacks blockchain, and we've so far made some performance improvements to the miner, and we are also working on a design via a SIP that we're drafting to add a Bitcoin token to the blockchain. So we are taking we're going to be discussing that in more detail on the architecture meeting tomorrow.
Beautiful, man. It's always beautiful to have folks with the technical background here, particularly from the SIP side of things, right? You guys tend to give us some really helpful and summarized insights right into what is a lot of your work, that if we try to dig into it ourselves, right, it require that much more manual effort and time. So thank you kindly for joining us in sessions like this. It'll be nice to continue to have you, hopefully, and continue to get updates like this on what you just mentioned. So thank you kindly, Igor, for joining us. Ragnar, did you have anything for us?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys doing this. I could tell it's a lot of work. So I'm the founder of Trajan. We received 2 grants from the Stacks Foundation. It's a reputation and identity platform that uses NFTs and signed recommendations and actions to build up your reputation and identity. So yeah, really excited for that. And I'm trying to get more involved in Stacks just in general. And yeah, see what I can contribute.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful to have you. I think your project has made its way into some of our Stacks advocates discussions as of late. There's some really cool things that you're doing there that maybe we can collaborate on, or get some insight into what stage you are on it. So it's beautiful to have you, man. And yeah, this is a beautiful place to come in and hopefully find your way to get deeper into the ecosystem, as you say. So,
yeah, thank you. I hope the chatter is good chatter. If it's bad chatter, then we'll just ignore it. But thank you.
No, it was really good. It was really good. Like I said, I think it was folks looking for some point of collaboration, if possible, with some of the cool things that you're doing. So beautiful to have you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Haas, we see you just jump in. It's beautiful to see you, man. Let us know if you have any stand-ups. We're just still in that stage. Folks giving some brief stand-ups.
Nope.
Beautiful. Good to have you, man. Hope all is well. Yeah, Hero, or I can go, of course.
Sure, yeah, I'll go. So this week and the past couple of weeks been working on finalizing all the CAP members. So for CAPS is for Consideration Advisory Board, and that serves a key part in the review process of the SIPs. Basically how Stacks blockchain improves. So those things on GitHub and everything. So I'm finalizing all the people. So I have all the names. So I'm just putting them in groups right now. So we have 21 individuals right now. Maybe more, even more to come, to be honest. But at least we have quite a lot of people who are expert in their field, ranging from technical, governance, like yourself. Yeah, so we have 5 group of people. So yeah, so they will be, I'm contacting each group and getting them activated. That's the sort of immediate priority. And I think that the next big thing in terms of SIP that I'm working on is I want to help educate about SIP's Stacks 2.1 upgrade, because essentially that's a big SIP. So that should be reviewed by all caps, but also already I'm getting community members asking me about that. So the more we can do from the foundation of the big entities to help educate the community what the SIP is about and what benefits or it brings to them, I think that's a very important sort of responsibility from our side.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Colin, for all that work. 21 people deep is no joke. To get 21 heads together, particularly on the front of governance or what is ultimately some sort of governance process with the SIPs process, right? Even if it's focused away from governance categories or cabs. So
yeah, an important thing is we also need to think about, or maybe if people got ideas, how to encourage people to come and vote. Because I don't think it would be like, oh, just vote with your stacks. It's not as easy as that. So I think the more we can facilitate the process, the more we can educate the process, the more we can get people to come out and vote. So it's critical that we have more voter turnout this year than last year. We had 28 individual votes last year. So I think we can do better. We have much more people this year. So I hope that everybody can help amplify that and facilitate that process, so we can all have a truly more true participation and a more decentralized way to make important key decisions like this, because it's a hard fork. Like it's not like just any random soft fork, right? So people need to be aware of that, need to understand that. So I think it's very important.
For sure. Thank you kindly, Mike, for the insights into that work. And yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how we engender, all the different angles we can engender the participation in those processes. We've discussed some of the advocates' paths towards this, and can hopefully add another layer of accessibility, which hopefully puts a dent in that overall number of participation in the voting as well. Particularly, the decision-making processes and the advocates a lot more dissent-based than majority vote-based, but can still lend itself to the more conventional voting that's required in the SIPs process, and hopefully in groups of people, so you can put a dent in that number for you. But yeah, this is interesting stuff to follow up on. I can give a brief stand-up as well. In advocates, we got quite a bit of testing done actually in our active issues. We've used active issues a few times before, but this time we had more clan participation than ever. We had some folks doing the darndest to onboard folks into the clan system that we have for our governance processes in Advox DAO. And we got some insights into some design changes that we need, some important design changes. So that's been exciting to see. So we're looking forward to even more participation, more onboarding in coming weeks. Also some design changes, implementation. I think Haas is just waiting for us to get over to him these exact changes that we want in terms of channel reorganizations, so that we can have all 6 clans have their own channels gated access-wise, and then just one active issue across all 6 clans is something that we're looking at to clean up the user experience and UI the tooling that we have that's using Harvard and Oxford's policy kit to wrap into the Discord for decision-making processes, right? And so this is something that we've been seeing through over the weeks, but also working hard on some of our outward-facing efforts, whether this is Twitter team stuff, getting some frameworks for the type of post flows that we want, bringing more folks into the fray. Professional consultant is likely going to be working with us, along with someone who can help facilitate hostings and Twitter spaces and things like this, coordinate them as well. So this is exciting stuff. A lot more content creators coming into the fray as well on that Twitter front. But also, we're working hard on a landing page and ensuring that it has all the things that it needs on in the website beyond the landing page now. Going into some navigation for our governance processes so that folks aren't just limited to a chat UI. So you can just plug you right into where you need to be based on your clan or based on the issue. Also working on some documentation, education-like pages inside the website. And now we'll be adding some pages specific for chapters as the advocates and chapters start to have some official efforts around bringing those two entities together. Advocates being a space where folks from local chapters can come in and stick around once they are brought into local regional chapters, as advocates has a place for visible contributions, evaluations, other community members for discussion and things like this. So this has been pretty much the focus of the last couple of weeks. Like I said, really scrambling for some exposure and comms, but also scrambling in the way of having something tangible governance-wise for folks to come into by the time we get into the growth efforts that come with chapters likely, which maybe we get into a little bit later. But yeah, we figure that, some of our welcoming team efforts and upgradings of these welcoming team efforts will be a big point of emphasis on the growth of advocates, the collaboration between advocates and chapters, so on and so forth. So we'll be likely on the website will likely be the culmination of all of these efforts, where we have hopefully a nice little flow for folks who come into advocates from chapters right into whether it's contribution flows in the D-Work board or Did a Things channel or even governance processes. But yeah, over the next couple of weeks, any blockers that we foresee, well, I think will likely be in some of the efforts of reps, right? I think we, in some of our efforts and active issues over the last couple of weeks, we came around to the conclusion of how necessary having reps is before we get into active issues implementation again, to allow the processes to go smoother, to have the necessary opt-in to the responsibilities of facilitating what is ultimately participation, right? And some of the arduous work that Hiro mentioned earlier, getting folks into these processes of any kind of governance, right, is usually pretty arduous. But we hope we have something unique with the clan design and the overall advocate system design. So yeah, there's some updates from myself. Hopefully not too long, and we can get into some of the other items here. If there's no comments, questions.
I have a really dumb question.
Yeah.
So I'm new, and so I'm going to ask them questions. So bear with me. I'm not always clear on the Stacks Foundation and who's doing what and sort of the organization. Who are the Stacks advocates? What does that consist of? Who is it? Like, just a very brief, if you don't mind, just giving me a summary of that, just to make sure I understand correctly.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you kindly. No such thing as dumb questions. Advocates is really the connection to the foundation in terms of advocates is really through what we have is a stacking pool as of now. We distribute weekly based on the contributions of folks coming into advocates. It really was more from longtime community members to newer community members coming in, intermediate, and folks that are already contributing in some way. And so, with that connection to the foundation there, it's mainly just us trying to establish some bottom-up systems of our own as community members. And this is the gist of advocates, particularly folks trying to come together in some distributed power and system design.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Hopefully that gives some clarity. We're trying to do some unique things too, right? Not just with the tooling from MetaGov and PolitiKit, which Haas has been hacking away at, building it right into the server, give us some customizable settings that usually aren't available in default settings of Discord. But also some beautiful clarity work from Haas, but also a big part of our research, coming out of the Berkman Klein research group, and the MetaGov research group, folks briefly point towards indigenous modes of organization. And that's one of our main focuses, working with a native group, the Ginyaga-Haga, so-called Mohawk of the Five Nations Longhouse Confederacy, for the last 3 years now, and still working closely with them, learning and being able to incorporate some of these structures into what we're doing with advocates to ensure that we're thinking seriously about autonomy, thinking seriously about distributed power to go along with decentralization. So, it's beautiful to have you and clarify things like this. We'll get into it. I think some of our first points of discussion usually revolve around the foundation. And to give you any other points of clarity on that front, we actually have your issue here that we can, really get your voice on now that we have you beyond, what you have here, of course. So yeah, if you'd love to get into this, we'd love to listen.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I am focused right now on I spoke with Brittany yesterday, and I'm focused right now on a Stacks Foundation Observer board member, non-voting, as the best way, I think, for me to put my efforts. And I actually yesterday created a grant proposal, which I guess isn't the perfect place to put this, but I created a grant proposal for me to be a observer board member. And then I kind of already knew, but I linked back to your guys' discussion on this from, I think, April of 2021 was the last time that it was brought up. Yeah, there it is, community board. See, there we go. So I guess I'm here to figure out how do we reopen this? And yeah, there it is. How do we reopen this so that I or someone else can become an observer board member? I read the whole thread. I looked at the Google Doc that had a description, previous sort of summary of what they were thinking for the observer. And so just want to open that up to see what you guys think. In my opinion, and again, I'm new, so bear with me. It seems like for whatever reason, the discussion dropped off last April or in 2021. So I just want to see first, has anyone thought about bringing it back, or maybe why didn't it kind of get somewhere? So I guess that's my starting question, is if anyone can bring me up to date on that where it left off and where people see it going, I guess.
Maybe I'll speak to that a little bit, because I'm a little bit like you. I came in sort of this year and saw this issue lingering for a long time. So if Harold jump back to the previous thread, GitHub, Harold.
Yes, the community board seat issue, right? This is it?
No, the one level up.
Okay. This.
No, one level up, sorry.
Okay.
Just want to show Ragnar where this issue is the same issue what you're talking about, Ragnar.
Okay.
The one below, call for board nomination.
Okay.
So if you want, you can have a quick read. But I basically if you scroll down, Harold, you'll see like basically I saw the same thing as you, like why is this conversation has been here for a while and not being solved? So I gave a little summary there and also made some attempt to get the conversation going. And what I said was basically, it's sad to it's not good that this been an issue for a long time. Just because we cannot get the right person who has the legal sort of all the boxes ticked, including being I think there is some liability that will come with it. But having said that, the longer, like, because it's all about representing the community, right? And just because we cannot tick some boxes, then we don't have a representative for 2 years. For me, that's just doesn't seem just was very illogical. So what I said was, let's just have something. You know, it doesn't have to have a it doesn't have to have official voting power. So I think that conversation, so I'm basically on the same sort of agreement with you. Like, I'd rather have somebody on the board without a voting power than not having anybody at all to represent the community. So I sort of attempted to revive that conversation in the thread a couple of months ago, but more from the perspective of having a team of people representing the community instead of just one. So maybe that's something we can explore, but it's good that you came up with by yourself for this board observer. I think Brittany touched on that 2 weeks ago, a board observer. So I think she's on board with that. And I think it's a good way to bridge the gap.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry, I didn't see that you had responded there. Otherwise, so I guess I'm a little redundant. So sorry, I missed this.
No,
Yeah.
don't worry. Like, navigating GitHub is like I only got GitHub this year, and it was like crazy. I had to learn how to even navigate stuff. But I think there's been a few different places where this conversation actually took place. So don't worry. But essentially, what I wrote there, a big piece of text, is more about we don't have to shoot for the moon, right? Let's just get something in place. So what you propose is what I like to hear from the community. Like, actually, we know this is our first step. We get a non-voting member in there, and maybe in the future, like whenever the time is ready or time comes, we could have the next step with a little bit more power. We don't have to shoot for the moon right now, and by doing that means we have somebody representing. Otherwise, this conversation, I can see, if we want a perfect scenario, shoot for 10 for 10, it's gonna keep going for like another 2 years without representation. And that's, for me, is not very logical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm someone who isn't always very patient. And so I'm on the same page just to get this going. And that's partly why I proposed my grant proposal. It's a simple yes or no. And we can modify. I guess that's why we're here to figure out how to best do this. In my mind, the easiest way to get to a yes and approval is just simply, let's propose one person, non-voting, obviously, to just do the next quarterly meeting, just one quarterly meeting. And then from there, we can iterate if necessary. In terms of feedback, make it very simple. We can do a block survey that people can write their thoughts, and maybe a Twitter space, and just very simple way to collect data. So this isn't a major project, and just that's what I suggest. And so we do a block survey, people input, the board member summarizes it, in a document, shares it like 1 or 2 weeks before the next quarterly meeting. They go to that meeting and they present their findings, and then they come back and then a week or 2 later present what the board meeting did, and just do that and then go from there about how it should be done in the future. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I like the sound of it from a let's just get it off the ground perspective. Just something that you may or not be aware, there's something called Ecosystem DAO, which trying to basically Marvin and Mike is working on. They're both being a long-term developers in Stacks, and they're basically coming up with a DAO tooling, basically DAO app, and that will facilitate the Stack 2.0, well, in the futures upgrade, Stacks 2.1 or Stacks 3 or whatever. Hope that's one of their use cases, hopefully. So basically this tool hopefully will allow all the users to vote in a much easier manner, which you can also vote people to represent 4 things as an ecosystem, Stacks ecosystem. So the reason why I brought it up is because we were talking about using that to vote for nominations for steering committee, which is also part of the governance process. And because I'm sort of touching on that because I was recently got into the residence program for Stacks improvement proposal, the SIP. I don't know if you're aware, but I'm working on the governance stuff, SIP improvements stuff, which I need to find the CAP members, the one I mentioned earlier, consideration advisory boards. So I talk all about this on Friday, so do join if you're interested. But essentially, we're trying to find the top people who makes the final yes or no approval for things, and that those positions are pretty key in the ecosystem. And what we thought we could leverage is the tooling that they develop, and we can use as an ecosystem to for the community to vote, saying whether we think that person can be on the steering committee. And so I'm tying back to you to this thing. Maybe short to medium term, maybe we don't have to do it this time, but maybe medium to long term, we could also leverage that for this board observer role in terms of nomination or voting. So I just want to put that into everybody's awareness. That's all.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's good to know. I was peripherally aware of that, so it's good that you filled me in on the details. So what do we need to do to try to get me or someone else to be a observer board member for the next quarterly meeting? And like, what's the shortest, most efficient route? Who makes that decision? What's the process? Or can we change the process even?
I think I don't exactly know, but it's almost a little bit like you know how Bitcoin works, and as long as you can gather enough sort of momentum behind your idea or your BIP, so that if you treat that as a BIP and if you can gather enough momentum, I think people are more likely to be on board with you. So that's as far as I know how I think of it, but other people may have a different interpretation.
Also, I'm wondering if a non-voting observer still has some of the liability things, or is that not an issue with just an observer role? But this could be something to consider as well.
I think the whole point is so that one of the points is just so that there's no liability. As I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Ragnar.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah, let's see, I gotta open up the chat here. There was this document, you guys probably all saw it, maybe you guys actually wrote it, that talks about the discussion of voting and stuff. So my understanding is that as long as they don't vote, there's not a legal thing. Could be wrong, not the attorney, but I don't think so. When I talked to Brittany yesterday, she said, I think a non-voting would solve the issue. And second point is, this is why I created the grant proposal, just so it's a very simple, like yes or no, and then also so the community can add their thoughts right to that, rather than trying to figure out this labyrinth route towards approval. Like the less that needs to be approved, the more efficient it is. And I could amend my grant application for just one quarter, like one meeting, to make it even easier to say yes to or no to, because it's just simple and there's less obligation. So I don't know, maybe we can just try to stick with my grant proposal or rearrange it or something, and then just see what they come back with. Because something you guys have talked about is like, between navigating just GitHub and finding the way to do this and everything else, it's kind of hard. Whereas like a grant application, a lot of people are familiar with it now, and it's very straightforward. So that's my thoughts, but you guys are the experts and the senior people here. So what do you guys think?
No, yeah, I think, Hero's suggestion of treating the grant app as a bit, right, in terms of garnering the support and, kind of leveraging what is the latest iteration of the grants program is, which is, trying to ensure we see support, in what they have set up. And yeah, I think, treating it like a BIP process wouldn't be so bad in terms of garnering the support. The processes you laid out, are concrete, and even the caveat of the one-off type of thing could make folks a little bit more comfortable and easier. Give them make them feel like they have a chance to get to know you even. But yeah, I think all of that is going to be important. But the impatience that you mentioned, and the similar trait from Hero, I think is probably one of the more valuable things from y'all mindset on this, right? Actually just getting this done, so it's not just sitting around anymore. And the insights from Hero too, in terms of the ecosystem now and bringing more folks into the fray over time as it's possible, I think would be a nice consideration as well, as folks get to know you. So yeah, I think this is a good first step in the right direction. Just getting something out there, whether it's where it's placed, I don't think is so much important. I think you're right in trying to pinpoint what folks are most familiar with in most recent times in terms of the grants. And so yeah, I think this is a good start.
Yeah, maybe Ragnar, you can leverage your Twitter profile, because you're quite prominent on Twitter. So it's easy for the Stacks community to sort of see you where you're at, if you're less on Discord, which is why I sort of suggested, if the more you can get into Discord community to let people know, because there's a big cohort of people in Discord. I think the more people know you, they can trust you and feel they can vouch for you. I think that will help, basically. But perhaps like concrete steps, I would say, is maybe you can write a brief thread about it. I think people digest Twitter's threads quite well, and maybe you can link your GitHub thing and ask, if people want to support this cause, they can go and comment and stuff. And I think by garnishing enough support, and then you notch some of the decision makers. I think if it was a grant program, that means decision makers are people like Will. And I'm pretty sure like other, like you were already talking to Brittany, so I'm sure she can also influence that process. So I think, yeah, I think the more you can, I think if you can put this to people's awareness, like you did in Discord, in general chat, I think that's good. Maybe if you need my help to amplify this, I can also sort of, because although it's not a SIP, but it does touch on governance, and because all I'm doing is all governance stuff, and maybe I can help you amplify or retweet or ask people to go and take a look. Or maybe if you have friends in Stacks that you can ask them to sort of reshare and ask people to take a look. I think all these little things might help to make this a more urgent, not urgent as such, but like more prolific issue that Stacks community should be aware. Like what benefit is it to the Stacks community to have somebody on the board? I think if you can educate like an NFT degen on why this is good for them, yeah, I think, I don't know, I'm just throwing ideas.
Yeah, no, I like your idea. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to my grant application and just kind of update with a comment saying, how about actually instead this just be for one board meeting, and just do that. And then I'll create a Twitter thread, like you said, just making the case for it, summarizing it, why people should care, how it benefits them, and then obviously link to the grant application where people can then comment with whatever they want to say. And once there's some feedback, I could always, ping Will and Brittany and whoever else. Obviously I've received 2 grants from the foundation, so I talk to Will frequently and we get along pretty well. Yeah, so I'll do that.
And also, one other recommendation I can say is, because GitHub is like a fucking shithole, it's difficult to use, right? You can go to Stacks Forum. It's an easier platform, and easier to sign up and easier to get people started. And already on Stacks Forum, you have some of the older Stacks people, or maybe like heroes and people like that, a bit more technical people there. But that's also a place I think you should also just mention it. Maybe people won't reply and stuff, but doesn't matter. Like, you put your thing out there and it's on people's radar. Stacks Forum. Let me drop the link in the chat.
Thanks.
By the way, I'm not senior. I'm just a pleb. I don't.
You're on your way.
I just love Bitcoin, and I love to bring, whatever ethos we can bring from Bitcoin to Stacks. That's
okay. Yeah, I see this form, so I'll cross post it there as well.
All right, beautiful. Thank you,
because I often cross post my SIP stuff, and I do it on Twitter. But you don't have to follow what I do. I just like to make it accessible sort of for people to see, because I know a bunch of people don't even use. I didn't hear about GitHub until this year. I didn't even know just how noob I am. But it's very devy stuff. But if you are speaking to community, you're going to have a bunch of degen that you're speaking to who do not have GitHub accounts. And they probably wouldn't even bother signing up to vote on your stuff. So maybe you can go and tell them to say yes in different ways. I don't know.
No, that's a good idea, because when I posted my original post, I had like maybe 5 or 6 recommendations for the foundation. And and then I posted on Twitter, and many people on Twitter said, oh, this is a good idea. I like this. And people DM'd me, and I asked people to comment, and very few did. And that might be a combination of just, people are busy, but also people don't have a GitHub, or they think it's a pain. So I will cross post on the forum, and that should get some more eyeballs.
Yeah, I think I would probably say 90%, over 90% of people stackers do not have GitHub. Like, it's really for the builders and people who are a little bit in the weeds of the governance process and all the technical stuff. But yeah, I don't know any NFT degen who knows who has a GitHub account. In fact, one of the person I asked, one person asked me what is. I told him, "Do you know what a GitHub is?" And he said, "No, what is a GitHub, mate?" And he followed up with a question saying, "Is it like Discord?" I was like, oh, man, no, come on. Like people really don't know in Stacks and across crypto, really. People don't need to use it. They just go to marketplaces, look at some JPEGs, buy and sell, and DeFi stuff. They don't need to touch GitHub.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, thank you kindly. I think they're important insights, get eyeballs on things, and but yeah, we run into the GitHub barrier quite often, trying to tap in the community. As of recent too, in previous years, there's a lot more dev heavy community, so I think GitHub became a staple early on in that way. But yeah, this is important to layer things on top. I've started to go into some of the action issues here, action items. There's a DWork task here. I renamed it to reflect, I think, where we are now. Previous comments here mentioned how we're incorporating it in the website for advocates, but also, we now I think at a time where we can start to request for some community feedback in terms of filling out even more particular needed tasks on the task board, ensuring that they stay concrete and have some type of path for evaluation, accountability, review by the community, some type of summary of impact as well. So this is modeled a little bit in some of the DWork tasks that we have already. But this is something that we do want to get out there to folks here, but particularly advocates and the broader ecosystem as well. Be a nice way to incorporate what's needed in the broader ecosystem into some of the advocates' flows as well. I don't know if there's any comments here, but this would be a nice place to work async along this effort. We'll likely be doing some of this announcing of requests for comments or requests for DWork tasks and advocates soon, now that it's ready on the website, nice and viewable for folks. And there's some links there to what it looks like on the website as well. I think this is an action item from Jason, who one of the first folks to handle some of the GitHub of this repo for this governance working group, getting together a theme, GitHub pages, and just letting folks know that if there are any changes to the theme that folks want to make, that it's possible. And Hero, I don't know, maybe I can send you a reminder soon enough around this particular issue. I know you gave an update before, but I know you're quite a bit a ways. Maybe we can link to some of your forum posts or something like this as well.
Yeah. I think once I have, I was thinking about posting, just say I've found all the people, but I thought that's probably not very like, it's an interesting update, but it's not like a sort of real outcome. So I was thinking only posts I've actually activated everybody. And
Okay.
by activating, I mean like having everybody's name logged on GitHub. So it's all recorded. And maybe they publish some statement about themselves or something like that. And then I'll give people an update here. But for the meantime, I just found everybody. That's all.
Okay. All right. No,
I didn't think it was post worthy.
Okay, I feel you. Wait until it's official. All right. I think this is something that yeah, I'm still considering whether or not we should close it out. I know Juliet may be wanting to get back to it, but we may want to close it until Juliet gets back. So yeah, I may be closing that still. I maybe won't do it right this second, but well, maybe by next session. I had some August updates here for decision-making testing. You guys heard a little bit of that in the stand-up. You can plug into the website again here. But just giving some updates around what's going on with some of the channel reorganization that I think we come to a conclusion on. And giving a little bit of update on upcoming issues. The SIPs, flows being important, just another angle of accessibility, hopefully, something not on GitHub that folks can come into. These also folks maybe even some of the most outward facing points maybe that advocates can achieve for bringing folks into the SIPs processes. With a big focus on, warm welcomes and, walking folks through the ecosystem that the advocates has. Hopefully this can be just an added layer to SIPs participation. But like I said, folks can follow upcoming issues and things like this on the website as we continue to get through our consensus flows and advocates. But yeah, look out for channel reorganizations coming up soon, which should scale down the messiness of our tooling so far, policy kit. And, and with some reps, I think is another important upcoming issue where we're trying to ensure we have a decent pool of folks across the clans, particularly women's clans, being an important point for us, not to lose track of the voices of women in decision-making processes in a unique piece of our approach to governance, right? That doesn't just speak to women's voices, but ecosystems, autonomy in general is really built into our structures in functional ways. So this, having a decent sized pool of folks in clans to be able to select representatives that will be opting into a whole lot of responsibility of engendering participation and facilitating necessary issues, doing due diligence in this way. But yeah, some August updates. Leave some time for questions or comments as well. Just making a note of time as well as I try to push through these, but feel free to stop me anytime. And we have some discussion here. I think the improving governance we already touched on. Maybe I added something here to the bottom of Advocates Pivot. I think the chapters updates are important here, so we'll be probably adding to this thread as things evolve with the connection to chapters. We'll likely be packaging all that we're doing in terms of welcoming team efforts and upgrades to any of our onboarding efforts and advocates to accommodate the growth of bringing in folks from chapters. Try to encapsulate that in a nice page on the website that cleanly walks new folks and chapters through the processes and advocates, whether that's the algorithm stuff that we have going on and peer-to-peer review and evaluation stuff, the importance of some of our system design and indigenous modes, governance and things like this. It'd be a nice way to bring folks into the flows of advocates and hopefully have some staying power for each of the local chapters with some robust system design. So yeah, I'll make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat here. And let's see. Yeah, we have some backlogs here from meeting notes cleanup from Jason. A brief update in terms of this stands for Tura Wampum and STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics. A part of GovLab efforts was to establish some important local and regional data management, right? Or it might be called MIDS, mediators of individual data, and connect it to some digital fabrication stuff that's possible on the ground. And really showing some small prototypes for local and regional data management, tapping into the cutting edge of industries with the indigenous modes twists, which happen to overlap a lot with sustainable development goals and things like this. So this is something still near and dear to the GovLab and something that we're still working with folks that are, have a design background, engineering background on this digital fabrication front, well beyond just 3D printers. And we're working with them currently to establish some first small prototypes of local and regional data management. So be updating that as soon as we have something for y'all. The Fireside Chat series is something that we've went on and off on. We've had a few dialogues with the Longhouse Indigenous Council that we've had. And we'll likely be bringing this back into the fray as we get things going with the Twitter team and things like this as a point of exposure for advocates and some of the cool things that we're doing research and development wise. Let's see. I think Jason recently brought this back up as an important point of, exactly how do we establish shared accounts and things like this. And I think he was really excited about the multi-sig efforts recently that we haven't had in the ecosystem before. So I think this is one of the reasons to bring this back up for discussion. If there's anybody interested in this front, I think it could be very important, whether it's the Twitter team, things that we're trying to get done in advocates, or other times folks are coming together, not unlike this session, right, where we could have more of a distributed access to accounts or what have you when it comes to GitHub, even not to bring up GitHub again, Hero, sorry. But yeah, languages and translation is something I know is really important, something that we've seen evolve quite a bit in advocates and data things, and folks coming in from chapters around the world and contributing their translation works in our templates and our data things and advocates. It's something that Sleepy's been working on a lot, and there's a nice crowd-in link for that. Here it is. I think we can actually update this with the actual crowd-in link that folks are using now. But I know this is something that maybe Jason brought back up for discussion so that we don't forget it. But yeah, I know we're just 1 minute over time now. Leave the floor open for anything, folks want to discuss lingering on their minds, but want to respect time as well. But thank you kindly for y'all being here. Igor and folks, I know you guys have been pretty consistent, and we're always grateful for the insights and updates that you're giving us. Ragnar, beautiful to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just one last thing. While we're preparing a SIP, it'll be very important to get the community's thoughts and ultimately, alignment with a SIP. So we will be thinking about ways to, query or the community whether they would like a SIP to be approved. Mm-hmm.
Igor, maybe you can come on my Friday call. Love to book you, and you can explain to the community what it's about, and there will be a recording of it, and that can go out, be put to people as well.
Yeah.
I'll be advertising that on Twitter too.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
And I think Stacks Forum is a good place to post your SIP too. In fact, one of my purpose for existing is to actually make almost like sort of a little bit more guided way for people to have a start to finish process when they come up with SIP idea. Where do they go to post it, or maybe start from Stacks Forum first, and once it's like you have the final spec all shaped out, then we move to GitHub. I think going from straight into GitHub, nobody knows in the community what's going on. So I will be getting into more things like that, and then over the next month or a few months.
Yeah, for us, the GitHub is great. However, we are potentially pursuing a consensus change, over this project that might last about a year. And so we ultimately do want to do some sort of on-chain voting. And I know that there's ecosystem DAO, but so we might want to use something like that to ultimately get, some sort of signal from stackers and other, stacks holders. That's kind of the That's kind of like the voting that we're looking for, more than so than GitHub.
100%. Like, I think Marvin and Mike might be finishing that. I don't know, in the next few months or so. I don't know exactly how long, but you can actually jump into the. Do you know where it is? Where they're discussing the ecosystem now?
What channel? It's a lot of channels. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. It's on the team channel. Let me see if you got the.
Yeah, you can tag me and I'll find it.
Well,
Thank you.
you might need to unlock. Yeah, I'll
Well,
also.
I think I unlocked all the roles. That's why I have so many teams.
Okay.
Okay, but let's see here.
Yeah, maybe
Well,
that's a good place to keep up to date, or you can.
Clarity Lab. Okay.
Yeah, you can ask questions because they don't really have a Discord server on their own about that project.
Okay.
Just sort of chiming each other there.
I think we
so-
might use Ecosystem DAO for this, so we'll be invested in it. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to collab. Because
Mhm.
I'm trying to be neutral and just facilitate this. Everybody, whoever wanna propose new ideas. So
Great, thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah. Yeah, and in addition to the Twitter stuff and the ecosystem DAO angle that, obviously we mentioned earlier, after hitting reps and having our active issues flowing and advocates, there'll be at least another place for discussion that hopefully, it lends itself to exposure as well, and hopefully decision making. But yeah, thank you, Connie. It's a beautiful place to wrap up potentially. Thank you kindly, y'all, for your contributions and the new voices and faces. But yeah, I'll stop the recording.